Hey, and welcome to the Meditations and Musings podcast. I'm Elena Lipson. I'm a mama, I'm a wife, and I'm the founder of the Divine Self-Care Circle membership and the Virtual Retreat Academy. I don't believe that you have to sacrifice your body, your health, or your family in order to create true abundance and prosperity. I believe in living based on the divine feminine metrics of success, and these include pleasure, play, ease, grace, and a slower pace. Each week, I'll bring you 1 to 2 new episodes. One of these will be a guided meditation that you don't have to do on the meditation pillow, and the other will be a conversation to help you access your inner wisdom, to ignite abundance, and inspire others to do the same. I invite you to join me on this journey back to the magic of a divinely aligned and well cared for you. And now, join me for today's episode. Hello, this is Elena Lipson, and welcome to episode number 7 of Meditations and Musings. Every time I say a new number, I feel so excited. So today I want to share with you 5 of the ways that I use technology to support my self-care. So as you might or might not know, if you're new to this podcast, I am the Divine Self-Care Mentor, and I help women to manage their energy, to curate their lives, and to get into daily alignment through self-care daily practices and rituals and retreats and meditations and all kinds of juicy stuff. My goal is to help you become the number one asset in your life, business, and the bedroom. And I believe that all of this is possible through small daily shifts. And so I'm always thinking about and tuning into and noticing and reflecting and observing what works best for my clients, for the women that I know in my life, for the amazing entrepreneurs who are working on beautiful levels of women's empowerment, of building businesses, making money, all kinds of things like even health and wellness. It really runs the gamut. But I work with a lot of amazing coaches and entrepreneurs throughout various industries. And so I've had some beautiful conversations, dozens and dozens and dozens of divine self-care interviews over on my blog, elenalipson.com, which you can head over and binge listen to. And eventually I plan on having some more interviews on this podcast as well. But for now, it's just you and me. So I want to share with you today 5 different ways that I use technology to support my self-care. And you might think that technology and self-care are 2 different things that don't belong together. I will disagree with that. So for sure, when I'm in a self-care cave, like when I'm away on one of my own personal self-care retreats, or when I'm hosting or leading a retreat, or when I'm working with my clients, technology definitely has its place. So with technology, I get to work with clients from all over the world. In my Divine Self-Care Circle, I literally have women on dozens of continents. And through technology, we get to see each other on a video conferencing, and we get to talk. I get to run virtual retreats. I get to teach other women how to run virtual retreats. Technology is a key element of my business. Now, when it comes to self-care, I would say that unplugging from technology is definitely a way to allow yourself to tune into your voice, to be able to access peace and quiet, to really unplug from what I would call distraction overload. And if you've experienced this, then you know that feeling of just wanting to turn off the computer, put your phone somewhere where it can't find you, and just be in nature somewhere for weeks at a time. I know I've felt that. I live in a place right now that's very green and very lush and very nature oriented, but it wasn't always this way. I actually grew up in New York City where it was very difficult to find the type of nature that I live in right now. And I would say that now I'm at a point in my life where I know I could be anywhere, even in New York City, and I could find ways to really curate my experience. I can unplug in ways that are profound. I can find inner stillness through my daily meditation practice, and I can find ways to really be in the moment instead of letting the flow and busyness of the city around me sweep me up in its energy, unless I want it to, because I do love the energy of New York City. It's quite phenomenal. So sometimes technology can help you to plug into access to people, to products, to information. It's all amazing. And sometimes we want to get away from technology. But either way we look at it, technology is part of our lives. And so I want to share 5 simple strategies and ways that technology actually helps me stay in tune, on track, and connected to myself. So the first way that I use technology to support myself is through the different features on my phone. And one of those is my notes feature. So this is a really specific, I guess it's an app, a notes app. And I use this in ways that supports me in my work and also in my creative pursuits. Sometimes we are consumed with like distractions and we don't have a process to capture all of our ideas. And so what ends up happening is we let those ideas either float away and never to be seen again into the realms of the dark depths of our brain, or we sort of use notepads or post-it notes that are all over the place, disorganized, and we never come back to them. And so what I found over the years is in order to stay organized with my notes, in order to clear space in my brain so that I can actually be present with myself, with whatever I'm doing, and with the person that I'm with, is I use the notes feature to actively capture my ideas on the run. So I love the notes feature because I can just press the little microphone button and record my idea. I especially find that my ideas start flowing quite well when I'm actually working on something. So if I have a project like a new course I'm creating, or a workshop that I'm about to host, or a keynote speech that I'm preparing for, whatever the project is or the next opportunity is, I find that there's part of my brain that feels like it's always working on it. And so if I can capture those ideas in creative bursts, in those moments when I'm experiencing them, I feel like it frees up energy for me to feel present. If I don't capture the idea and I try to stay with in the conversation, I feel like I can't really be fully present unless I get that idea on paper. I'm doing quote unquote paper because for me, I do carry around a small journal, but I find that if I write them down on paper, sometimes that paper gets lost, and I've lost so many pages sometimes because I try to write things on receipts or papers in my wallet or in my purse that end up getting lost somehow. I'm sure I've lost some brilliant ideas that way. But when I put it in my note, the cool thing for me is that I access it. It's filed. I can save it. I can also access it from my laptop at a later date. So I can just put it quickly in the note, and I can, and the cool thing is, and I think this could be misconstrued as constantly being distracted by my notes, but I don't see it that way at all. My husband knows that I'm a creative person. I have ideas. So I have this agreement with him. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to capture this note real quick. And I don't do it like every 5 minutes, right? It could be 1 or 2 or 3 times throughout the day. And so he knows that for me, it's really important to capture an idea in the moment, because I've had those ideas, and if I don't write them down, they do go away. It's just how our brains work. So if I'm driving, sometimes I will actually have my son write it down because obviously if I'm driving, it's not a good time to take a note. I will sometimes sort of create a little reminder for myself, and next time I pull over or when I park, I will write it down. So just be safe. Don't do it while you're driving, obviously. But I find that using my notes is a great way to continue being present with my life and the people that I adore, but also to be able to honor my creativity and to capture ideas. And so in that way, I find that it's my own self-care to have a process in place where I can capture my creative flow, but also it allows me to be super present. Now, when I'm fully unplugged and I don't have my phone with me, I sort of give myself a command, a declaration like, okay, I am going to fully unplug and be fully present in the moment. And if an idea arrives, I'm going to trust the idea will stay until I get to pen and paper, because that does happen too. But I think the more you practice remembering it, but also getting to a system of a way to capture your ideas, then you'll know that you have the capacity to either remember when you need to, or also write it down and just move on and come back to that idea later. So I think that's something that you can definitely work on. If you don't like the Notes app for some reason, or if you don't have one, you can also use Evernote, or you can use, there's a multitude of apps. And if you really are a pen and paper type of person, then have that one notebook dedicated just to your ideas in your handbag or your purse or your backpack. Because if you start using it for different things, that's when you start losing your ideas, or you start writing on the back of things never to be seen again. So if you do prefer pen and paper, then choose one small notebook that you always have with you. And so when those ideas start flowing, I find that when you start writing them down and have a process to capture them, then you actually start having more ideas. So it's a really cool sort of, once you create the space for it, it actually fills up. And that's what I found to be true for myself. So find something that works for you. If the notes on your technology work, that's awesome. And if you're really more pen and paper, then go ahead and use that. So that's the first way that I use technology to support myself. The second way is my calendar. So my calendar is the way that I literally curate my experience of life. So because I teach this in my Divine Self-Care Circle, I also host Dream Calendar workshops where I teach you how to curate your time, how to actually put things on the calendar that you want to be there, not fill your calendar to the brim. I love lots of white space on my calendar, time to just be, time to play, time to just, go for walks, have spontaneity. But the things that do make it on my calendar are very curated specifically with intention and with mindfulness. So and the really cool thing about having a calendar, one calendar where you keep all of your to-dos, not to-dos, but your tasks, and also your events and invitations and things like that, is that if you are away from your calendar, and someone asks you, hey, do you want to join this volunteer group? Or hey, do you want to come join us here? Or invites you to anything, really. You can say, I can't make that decision without my calendar. Or can you email me? Or can you ask me again tomorrow? Because I can't say yes or no without my calendar. And the cool thing is that for some people who have a hard time, and you might be one of them, in saying no to something or someone in the moment, especially an invitation to volunteer or come to some dinner party you don't really want to go to, or really anything, is that you have this sort of permission to say, oh, I need to check my calendar, and you literally do, because I have done this before where I've even double booked clients. Oh God, that's only happened once or twice, but it feels terrible. Or I've forgotten something because I verbally committed to it, but I didn't put it on my calendar. Or I verbally committed to it, but I didn't realize there was already a different commitment on my calendar. So this gives you permission to say, not say yes or no in the moment. Maybe you're the type of person that needs to go away and think about it for a while. Give yourself permission to do that. Or you can just say, you can just say no if you want to. No, thank you. That doesn't work for me. Or you can say, I need to check my calendar and then get back to them. But I would say if you know that it's a no right away, that's a different topic. This is where you need to give yourself permission to really invest your time and energy and money into those activities that you really want to be in, and not distract yourself with things that you really don't want to do. That is a different conversation, a different podcast. I'm sure we'll get into this, into how you invest your time and energy. But the cool thing about having a calendar where you commit to no events unless you have your calendar in front of you. Now, if you do have your calendar in front of you, you can definitely check in the moment and say, according to my calendar, I do have space, but I don't want to do it. And this is an internal process, right? You're not saying this out loud. So you need to decide, you have a process of answering someone in the moment based on your calendar. Then you need to be very clear on your own feelings and intentions, and being okay with not apologizing for saying no. So that's a really important skill set. The way I teach my clients to do the graceful no is, thank you so much for asking. It's not going to work for me. That's it. No explanations needed. No is a complete sentence. You've been graceful. You've honored your own needs, and you don't have to explain yourself. So many women get into this habit of having to explain away why they're saying no, or to say yes because you feel too guilty saying no. But if you really have something else that you want to do with your time, even nothing, even if you have a rest day for yourself and all of a sudden someone's asking you to do something, it is within your full rights as a human being to say, thank you for asking. It's not going to work for me. And that's it. That's all. Does that make you feel uncomfortable? Good. It should, because we've been trained to be polite. We've been trained to please others. And it's time that we take back our time and curate the experience of life that we want to have. So I hope this makes you think about it a little bit more, because you have the full right and privilege to use your time in a way that makes you feel good. And if you are being invited to something that you don't want to go to, then you can say, thank you so much for inviting me. It's not going to work for me. And that's it. And then it's up to you how you deal with it afterwards. But I would say try as hard as you can not to justify yourself. So that's my advice for you. Okay, so that was notes and calendar. And the third way I use technology to support my self-care is the reminders option on my phone. So here's a couple of examples of reminder prompts that I use to support my self-care mindset, my self-care affirmations, and self-mastery. So the three that I have right now that I always have on my phone, have been on there for a long time, are the following. So first thing in the morning, about 8 a.m., I have a prompt that's been there for probably a good 2 years, 3 years, something like that. And it says, something amazing is going to happen today, and I can't wait to find out what it is. And that comes up every single morning. It's been coming up for so long that when that little bell goes off on my phone in the morning, my son actually says this out loud. Something amazing is going to happen today, and I can't wait to find out what it is. So what this does is, besides my magic morning practice, which you will hear more about at the end of this podcast, I definitely love to start my day in alignment with full positive energy, with meditation and movement and writing, which you can learn more about at the end of the podcast. But throughout the day, our mind tends to wander into old habitual patterns. And so this is one way to start to reprogram your thinking about your day and not to react to things in a way that you don't want to. So a great way to do this is to have prompts on your phone at certain times of day that you're prone to either be tired or start to go into reaction mode, like especially in the morning when you're trying to get out the door. If you have kids, you might tend to hurry. And so instead of going into that mode that you don't want to be in, that busy, hurried, let's get out the door no matter what time it is, gotta go kind of mode, this actually helps you to pause and to add a little bit of playful positivity to your day. And so you can have something different. But for me, I love this one because it actually asks a question of my mind that then I can start answering and start dreaming into a little bit. And it's also really fun. So again, there's a prompt at 8 o'clock in the morning and it says, something amazing is going to happen today. I can't wait to find out what it is. And so you can pose it as a question. You can do something altogether different. But you can choose for yourself. So the second one that I have comes around noontime. And the one that I love this one because it's totally aligned with around the lunchtime hour when many people tend to work right through it or grab a candy bar or whatever. I don't agree with that. I try as hard as I can not to eat in front of my computer. And so I have a prompt that comes up at about 11:45 that says, what's the most nourishing thing I can do for myself right now? And usually it's around lunchtime. So the most nourishing thing I can do for myself is usually wrap up whatever I'm working on and to actually enjoy lunch, enjoy nourishing my body, or maybe it's go out for a walk and get some sunshine if I've been inside all morning, or sitting all morning working on something. So what's the most nourishing thing I can do for myself right now? So this is one of the strategies that I teach when we really go into the dream calendar part of what I teach in curating your weeks, your quarters, your months, your years, is really about setting those things in motion throughout your day that help you to fulfill the bigger vision that you have of your life. And the third one that I have happens around 5 p.m., 4 or 5 p.m. And really it's just an affirmation. It says, I intend to experience greater and greater levels of magic. And it comes up and I see it and it's sort of embedded in my mind already that I know it's going to come up. And so it makes me sort of smile and pause. And so with having those 3 simple reminders happen throughout my day, all I had to do was go into my calendar and create a repeating event forever. And so, of course, I can change them anytime I want to. I can adjust them. I can add things if I want to. And I think 3 for me, one at the beginning of my day, one at the middle of my day, and one at the end of my day are ways that I can create this beautiful container of positivity, of reminders for myself, and of questions or words that I want to put into my consciousness. Because one of the things that happens especially for women, is we have this negative mind track going. So we have to become very mindful and conscious of the things that we put in our mind all day long and the messages that we get from the outside. So this is one way to sort of curtail a lot of those messages and to actually put something in that you want to be in your mind track. So that's another way that I support myself with reminders. So just to review, we have the notes section, we have the calendar section, and the reminders on my phone. The 4th way that I support myself and my self-care is through curating my experience with podcasts. So podcasts for me, which obviously I'm doing a podcast, so I love podcasts. I wouldn't be a podcast recorder. I wouldn't create this podcast if podcasts weren't something that I really embedded in my life. And I actually really love to listen to podcasts. I do love my quiet time driving as well, or being out in nature, but I do use podcasts as a way to educate myself, to really align my mindset with where I want to be, and to entertain myself, of course. So there's different podcasts that I listen to, like, the TED Radio Hour is phenomenal. I learn things, I get inspired, I start thinking in new different ways because I learn new things. I love listening to Snap Judgment just because I love listening to storytelling, and it's one of the best storytelling podcasts out there. My son and I have discovered a couple of new science podcasts that he really loves, and so we share that together. Let's see what else. I love to listen to things like the James Wedmore Mind Your Business podcast. He's been one of my most amazing mentors, so I love listening to him. I have a list of, a good dozen podcasts that I listen to, like the Rob Bell podcast, which is a beautiful, inspired, sort of spiritual podcast that makes me think and see life in new ways as well. Then I do have some business podcasts that I listen to, and I can put a list of these in my notes as well. But I absolutely love podcasts for their ability to basically inform, educate, entertain, and to, especially when I'm working on, my business, like there's definitely things I want to learn. And so someone like Amy Porterfield, who has the Marketing Made Easy podcast, and it's really important to learn marketing because marketing is how I get my message out there. So that's when I listen to. And then I just started listening to the So Money podcast with Farnoosh Torabi. It's another great one. The Good Life Project is another great one. The Rich Roll podcast. So I do have probably a dozen podcasts that I listen to depending on the time of day, time of week, if I'm alone in the car or not. So I would say the podcast is a definite way that I use to enhance my self-care, my self-mastery, and just my life in general. So now don't just listen to podcasts, as a way to fill time. Be intentional about it. Again, that word curating your time. So do you want to educate yourself? Do you want to learn more marketing? Do you just want to be in storytelling mode? Or do you want to learn a new skill? What are the things that you want to do? Because there is a podcast for everything out there, including this, Meditations and Musings. So learn to curate your podcast listening, and don't just listen to something. And I mean, I'm one of those people, if I'm reading a book and it's not good, I'll give it a little while, but usually I'm not going to waste my time continuing reading something I'm not enjoying. Same with podcasts. If you're not enjoying something, if it's not making you feel good or teaching you something, or the voice is irritating or whatever, don't continue listening. You can press stop and you can listen to something else. If my voice is irritating to you, please, by all means, turn it off and go listen to something else. If you adore it, if you like it, if you're enjoying it, if you're learning something, if you're getting inspired, please stay. So again, podcast is a way that I curate. Now, the 5th and final way I use technology to support my self-care is the off button. That's right. So it's interesting because I hear people say, I'm always available, I'm always connected. And I'm like, well, you can just turn your phone off. Did you know that? So I think, a lot of people, when they're sitting with someone over a meal or you're going for a walk, you still have your phone with you or you have it on, you really can turn it off. Not only does it give you the release and relief from being around technology and that signal all the time, but it also allows your brain to be fully and completely present with whatever you're doing, with yourself, with the person that you love, with reading a book. I mean, how many times have you sat there reading a book and every few minutes your hand mysteriously gets drawn to your phone, which just happens to be sitting right next to you to check Facebook or something, or you're trying to work on a project or you're writing and all of a sudden your eyeballs are mysteriously drawn to your phone and you're distracting yourself, or you're sitting at a table having lunch with someone and they leave to the bathroom and the first thing you do is check your phone. Yep, been there, done that, not pleasant. So the off button is something you can regularly press with full permission and give yourself the opportunity to feel what it feels like to think a complete thought, to have a conversation that's uninterrupted, to be in nature and to just really feel what it's like to be fully present, or to read a chapter of a book without feeling like you need to check on what you're missing on Facebook or Instagram. So that fifth one is really important because you have access to it all the time. So just to review, 5 ways that I use technology to support my self-care and myself are using the notes on my calendar to capture my creativity, using my calendar itself as a way to curate a graceful, no thank you, that will not work for me this time. The reminders on my phone to consciously add positivity and affirmations that infuse me with magic and joy and reminders to really focus on the positive things in life. I use podcasts to educate myself, to entertain myself, and to really learn new things in ways that I might not have because I have access to amazing content, storytelling, science, math, money information, whatever you want, it's out there. And the final 5th thing, probably the most important thing, is the off button, is what you can use to understand that you have access and permission to curate your day, your time, your relationships, your energy in a way that feels good to you. So when you hear someone say, I'm always connected, yeah, you don't have to be. You have the opportunity, you have that finger that can press the off button and to allow yourself to enjoy so much of what life has to offer. So those are the 5 ways that I use technology to support myself and my life and my self-care path. I hope that you've taken some notes. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do share it with someone who can benefit. And most importantly, please come back. I've got lots more for you. I am just getting started on episode 7. I have some great meditations coming your way. I have some more musings coming your way. And I do plan on having some fun guests on the Meditations and Musings podcast. So please keep coming back. Please give us good reviews. And I'm so grateful that you've stayed with me, that you're listening to this, and that you're here. I really adore this conversation, and I adore knowing that you're out there listening to this, hopefully on your walk or washing dishes, or maybe just lounging in the grass, or maybe you are writing in your journal right now because you've been inspired by something I've said. I really hope you are. Thank you so much for being here. Again, this is Elena Lipson, your Divine Self-Care Mentor, and I hope to see you again next time on the Meditations and Musings podcast. Take care. Thank you so much for listening and learning about the new Divine Self-Care way of being in your life, business, and the bedroom based on the divine feminine metrics of success: pleasure, play, ease, grace, and a slower pace. If you're ready to bust the myth of overwhelm and tap into an inspired start to each day, I've put together a free video series for you to help you start each day with energy, inspiration, and ignite that inner pilot light which attracts joy, magic, and synchronicity. You can access my 3-step magic morning practice to help you ignite your inner light and attract the abundance that you're craving. Head on over to elenalipson.com/gift. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would so love if you share it with a friend, a sister, a mother, a daughter, and please leave a review. That is how the magic starts to ripple out. Here's wishing you a day full of beauty, magic, and divine self-care. I'll see you next time at the Meditations and Musings podcast.